Hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. We got a new segment that we're wrapping up with tonight. Or maybe not wrapping up. I don't know how long this segment will take. It might be just, really quick.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. It's a new segment. Pete's called it... What did we call it, Pete?
Miniature Adventures.
Miniature Adventures. Where we're going to be adventuring miniaturely.
Small adventures. I was also thinking about just mini adventures, but I like miniature adventures.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a fun little segment. We are going to be cracking open some boxes of minis, right, Pete?
That's true. A huge shout out to our dear friend Maddie Morgs, who gave us these minis. And also, Maddie Morgs, I'm going to take the opportunity to promote Maddie. Maddie Morgs is a really great community, and for those of you who haven't already checked it out and aren't already big friends, because I know we have a lot of crossover, you should go to Maddie Morgs' Twitch stream and watch the things that he does. And also, if you like minis, Maddie's is the place to go for minis. He does mini giveaway raffles and has whole days about it. It's really cool, and you should check it out. Jeremy's wall behind him.
Yeah, this wall came from Maddie Morgs.
These are all Maddie minis.
Along that line, on my screen right now, you should be able to see the Maddie Morgs Orphanage, something that we actually host on the D&D Time website. You can get a link to it. I just linked it in the chat. But here you can see every mini that Maddie currently has available in his inventory. I've already sorted, so I'm only looking at Theros. And you can just buy these from Maddie. He's a proprietor of fine Dungeons & Dragons miniatures. You can click on the links to see what they look like. And that's what we're going to be kind of using today as we crack open our boxes and see what we got. So, Pete, who do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, here's the box. This is the Mythic Odyssey of Theros, the MTG
starting with the Pete zone?
Let's go to me.
We'll start with the Pete zone.
So I told you, I peeked at the box beforehand, and I saw that it has something different. It has a weird plastic cover instead of the usual thing, so I don't know what that means for my stuff. But I got... Oh, Jeremy, I think I know what it means.
Great. I'm sure Pete got the biggest, best mini in the universe.
Jeremy, this one has two big ones in it.
What? There were double drag. Oh, I didn't know they did that in.
This has got two big ones, and we're going to start out with one of these big ones because it's a monster that I know already by looking at it. I have here a griffin.
Oh, hot damn! Pete.
I love the griffin. It's so rad. Oh wait, yeah, okay, cool. You're putting them up on the screen. I'm holding them up to the camera here. Cape? This got a crate. This is a griffin with a cape. Very cool. Very cool mini. These ones are so detailed. Jeremy and I were talking about minis the other night, and these have so much detail on them. And my mini collection is in many ways is nowhere near as impressive Yeah, it's nowhere near as impressive. So every single mini I get, I'm just always very excited. But that's a griffin. So we'll do something. Also, just to explain what we're doing here, we're not just unboxing these minis on the stream. When we're all done, we're going to go through and kind of talk about how we would build not necessarily a challenging encounter, but an encounter around each of these things.
Exactly. How we could incorporate these in a kind of funhouse dungeon kind of sense, right? If you wanted to use all of these creatures and engage your players in a fun, exciting way, this is how you do it.
This is another very cool one I got here. I got the
Blind Box Dungeon. That's a way better name, Sword. Crap. Ooh.
I got the two-headed Cerberus here.
You're holding them not in front of the camera.
I'm trying to do it right, but it's blurry.
You're going to the right.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm a beginner at this. You should see Maddie get the camera to Oh, there it is. I got that good focus now.
Boom, boom.
You should see Maddie do it. He's a pro.
Yeah, definitely functional as a Death Dog, Frosty. I would totally agree.
I have a returned sentry.
A returned sentry? Who's that look like? Oh, he's just a dude.
That's a cultist-looking guy here.
Indeed.
A cultist. And then
and we're gonna use these based on what they look like. So if we want to use this guy as a cool cultist, he's a cool cultist.
The griffin we'll probably treat as a griffin because we know what that is, but...
Actually, this is you buy a box, right? You crack these guys open, you have them at your house and you want to run this quick dungeon that uses all the cool new things you got, that's what we're going to kind of be doing today, actually.
Jeremy, this guy
I realize
is
that's a way better way to frame it.
You were saying this to me that you think I got... This guy is definitely one of the rares. This is the Aberrant Overlord.
Oh my god.
This guy is so rad.
Of course, Pete got the Abhorrent Overlord. My goodness.
Like he's this big demon, and he's got the crows flying around behind him. This guy is rad as hell. All right, that's what I got. So I'll write down mine on the thing. Oh, you already got them. So
I've already put a couple of them down.
Two-headed Cerberus and the Aberrant Overlord.
All right.
All right, Jeremy, the turn is yours. Show me how it's done. Show me a real mini cracking pros technique.
But before, since I have this moment here to show you my collection, just in bigger screen. Beautiful. We got our red Draco Lich, our other dragons. We've got our aberrations, including a variety of beholders, different types, and something that for me matters, but others might not. My leather dice bag signed by Matt Mercer. I really like that one.
Jeremy, I didn't know you had a leather dice bag signed by Matt Mercer, although that makes sense.
I met him at a party once. It was wild. Anyway, so I'm going to crack this boy open. Oh, he sliced right open. All right. Matt Mercer, yeah, right? It's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Matt's. He's a very good dungeon master. All right, let's see what I got. Oh, I can see there's one thing. Oh, right off the bat.
Jared, are you going to save your big boy for last?
No, I'm going to go right for the big boy because
okay.
I got a giant crab.
Hells yeah.
Bah. All right, what is he called? He's called Emissary of Thassa. I'm going to call him Giant Crab.
Emissary of Thassa? It makes sense for that guy. Jeremy, can you... I guess I can't tell. Does he have stars? Is he like a Nyx Spawn kind of thing?
Oh yeah, the underside of him is it's hard to tell on this, but it is sparkly.
Yeah, so this is a cosmic crab.
Sparkle crab. I love him. Oh, his legs have it too. It's very hard to see on the camera.
Cosmic crab sounds like once they're on like their fourth string of Marvel heroes, they'll see cosmic crab come out.
What else do I got? All right, I got a small dude, which oh, you're pretty cool. Is a lady with fire.
Ooh, what oh, is that like? That's like the Oread or something. That's like one of the Dryad nymphs. I think.
Yeah, it's not loading super well, but let me get the picture of her up.
What's the official name on that one?
Oh boy! Oh yeah, it's the Nymph Oread.
Oh, it is the Oread.
That picture does a much better job than I did. She has tactful rocks all over her body. Thank you, wizards.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got.
That's about right.
We're funky looking. We got. Wow. The attention, so the video and stuff doesn't do these guys justice. The attention to detail on these figures is righteous. We have this Leonin, I believe it's an iconoclast.
Is that the iconoclast? I got one of those guys too.
Yeah.
No, it's a
Swiftclaw. Swiftclaw.
Oh, I got an iconoclast.
It is not focusing, so you know what? I'm not good at this either. Maddie's way better at this than I am.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, a very cool lion person with like a big axe. A golden axe, in fact. And my final boy is, oh, what the hell are you? It's another nymph. It's an Alcide. Which I don't know what that means, but he's like got yellow fire on him.
This guy's popping off.
He's not doing it super well, but he's a cool thing.
As someone who plays a lot of MTG, like in particular the Oread, I recognize the Oread from the MTG art. The Cosmic Crab, my favorite Marvel superhero, is an excellent pickup.
Yeah, so Right? Is Cosmic Crab an actual Marvel suit? I don't know.
No,
man.
I'm just telling jokes.
You're just goofing. All right. So Pete, what do we got? We got. Do I have to put their real names, or can I put them Cosmic Crab?
You can put, just for that one, you can put Cosmic Crab.
Okay. And then we got a nymph. Alcid. We've got a nymph, an Oread. And we got the Leonin Swiftclaw. Thank you for doing that, Pete. I have to do so many things trying to get the stream going. All right, we got the Swiftclaw. All right, so we got a whole pile of different things to look at here.
So do you want to just take these guys one at a time, or how do we want to dive into making a little? Because really, the idea is with each of these monsters, we want to talk about how myself and Jeremy would not just like run the monster for its stat block, but make encountering that monster interesting and build it out into a story and give your players something to interact with beyond just this is the block that I'm battling.
So I like the idea. So I mean, obviously, when we do this, right, when we kind of create this little dungeon, I think we want to pick like an area or a terrain, right? That like we're gonna build this little dungeon in, and I don't know, just based on what you have with the Cerberus and the Abhorrent Overlord and
this Return Sentry is kind of a spooky cultist vibe too.
Yeah, right. Like I think we're looking at some kind of like underground like temple or ruin kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure. And do we want to do two different ones with our different thing? Because you also have you have the Alcid, the Oread, and this Cosmic Crab. I see you as like definitely having an elemental kind of vibe with everything you got going on here. Do you want to do two different like mini dungeons right here?
Yeah, let's just do two little mini dungeons because like
I think mine's easier of the two. I want to start with mine just because I think mine's more straightforward.
Let's start with yours so that I don't get totally lost.
So I think like in terms of building relationships between these things, I don't think that's all that important for what we're doing. But like, there's a very clear progression of things here, which is like, we have a guard dog, we have a cultist, we have the demon that cultist is summoning, and then we also have a griffin.
So here's my thought process, right? The griffin is maybe like, if this were a dungeon, this is how I would run this, right? I'd have the dungeon planned out, right? Where the Cerberus is going to be, where the kind of cultist sentry guy is going to be, and of course the Overlord is the one being summoned in the inside. I think the Griffin, right, is like outside of the dungeon in like the forest surrounding, and the Griffin has like, you know, it has a cape, so maybe it has like a saddle and stuff, but its rider is missing, and clearly the Griffin has signs of injury. And so while the Griffin is a random encounter in the forest, right, it's a startled Griffin and attacks the players, there's obvious signs that this Griffin has been attacked and was probably a trained Griffin, right? And so the onus is on the players to de-escalate that battle with the Griffin to figure out what happened to it. What do you think? That sounds like how I would want to use that creature.
I am very, very, very much into that because the thing about the Griffin also is no player, especially because we're talking about this big demon summoning thing, and it sounds like we're creating a higher level challenge. So I think that you want the encounter with the Griffin to be essentially a social encounter. Every player looks at that creature and thinks, I want to ride on that Griffin ultimately. Like, I've never not put a Griffin into a game and had players at least a little bit try and ride that creature.
Yeah. Well, and even if we keep it at a low-level challenge, like even if the Abhorrent Overlord isn't actually in this adventure, right? It's just if the players are to fail in stopping the ritual, the Abhorrent Overlord would show up, or maybe it shows up in like a weakened state because they are able to disrupt the ritual in some way. I really like what After was saying in the chat. Maybe the Caped Griffin feels like it could be the ride down toward the underground temple. Yeah, right.
The Cape is telling a story for certain.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, because it means this Griffin is a trained and intelligent creature. This isn't a wild Griffin attacking you because you're like prey. This is an injured creature that is attacking you for some other reason, right? And it has an intelligence to it. But I love that, right? So the players come across this griffin. Clearly, it's got a cape. It's got like a saddle. It's smart. They have to like de-escalate that combat to communicate with it. Maybe the griffin like motions them like, to like get on its back, right? I will fly you to the place. I think that's like, that works really well after, I think. And maybe the griffin's rider was captured by these cultists as part of their sacrifice or something.
I can see this being a really interesting encounter for a druid in the party that might find the ability to speak with the griffin, even though they're technically not the beast. Like, if they have, like, a speak with animals spell, that I would allow a player, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to allow your druid to talk to the griffin.
Maybe it can speak druidic, or it can speak,
it can at least, or at least intimate eventually that it understands speech, and so, communicate it with it just through... I could picture, like, these kind of little tidbits are so fun for players, I feel like, most of the time, in figuring out how to communicate with the creature, because, like, even if it just understands speech, them creating, like, a tap your claw on the ground once for yes, twice for no, that's fun. That's, like, that's gameplay.
Well, it's also, like, language is something in the game that's so often overlooked. As soon as your druid player runs into a character that they can communicate with because they're a druid, they're instantly invested in anything related to that monster. 100%, they're into it, right? You've got that player buy-in just because, like, whoa, guys, stop! We're not killing this thing. I can speak to this, and I can't speak to anything with my powers. So, I think that's a really cool tie-in there.
Agreed. Regardless, I think that the Griffin is in many ways our port of entry into whatever this dungeon is, and we've recommended a whole bunch of ideas for the Griffin, and I think literally all of them were good. Like, I think you could use it in any of these number of ways, but regardless, this is kind of like, this is the, what's the word that I'm looking, this is almost your call to adventure, there's something wrong here, there's this strange Griffin that's been injured in some way, or that is acting feral when it's obviously trained, like, this is there's something wrong here, there's something for us to discover, entry point into an adventure.
I totally agree. I think that's a very cool start. So we have that. What's happened to the Griffin? Because I think the Griffin is a rider, right? And something bad has happened to that person.
And I think
have they just been kidnapped? Is that the idea?
I think that they are the sacrifice upon which the aberrant overlord is summoned. Because this returned... Well, you look at this return century. This return century absolutely is with that mask coming at some dark rituals. Like, there's a blood sacrifice. Also, just like the name returned. I know we weren't going to base it on the name, but this feels like an otherworldly. This feels like an otherworldly. Like, I think someone pointed that out. Are they undead? I don't know if they're undead, but for me,
they are.
It's interesting if they're undead, so I think they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that works well. And I like what After's saying. Maybe the Griffin was injured by the Cerberus. I like the idea that it has injuries from multiple bites and... My cat just knocked a bunch of stuff over. Multiple bites in multiple places. Like, it has, like, dog bites in it, foretelling of the Cerberus.
The thing that... want to talk about the Cerberus now, Jeremy?
Yeah. Just a second. I just...
Because the thing that I think about the two-headed Cerberus is, I mean, Cerberuses are... Yeah, I can...
I'll just open them up here.
I can just hold them up again.
Yeah, it's easier to see on this. What about the Cerberus? What's up with this guy?
So
is he a guard dog?
The obvious thing about the Cerberus would be guard dog, and I actually think that, like, I really like using monsters for the thing that they are able to be iconically recognized for the players. Like, I love when you see a Cerberus and the players instantly think, they get the opportunity to think, oh, it's a guard dog, it's guarding something, and let that be true, because that brings people more into the world. It makes them feel like, yeah, I'm able to intuit this. I'm like living and breathing in this world. I understand when I see a Cerberus that it's a guard dog.
Well, it's like a puzzle. Like, why is a Cerberus here? And it's, oh, it must be guarding a secret entrance to somewhere hidden in the bushes or hidden on the hillside. And that's like a little puzzle that they've just got. They just solved the puzzle, right? Like, when you're talking about puzzles and Dungeons and Dragons, that's a puzzle. Like, why is it here? And solving that feels good. It's rewarding. I think it's a really good. I agree, Pete. I think that's a really good good use of the Cerberus.
And in terms of like making the Cerberus more interesting for me, like if I was gonna have a Cerberus guard dog, I would try and make it intimidating looking and try and like communicate to the players like, yeah, this thing is very threatening. Because I think to me, the thing that I would want to do with this Cerberus is in some way, because it's like this two-headed creature, let the players interact with the fact that it has two heads and like confuse it by diverting its direction in multiple places. Like that's what I would do to make this encounter interesting, is even if I don't know what the stat block is for it, but include mechanics that allow the Cerberus to be like distracted or to like make the heads kind of like fight each other almost a little bit, like not in the sense that the Cerberus is going to like battle itself to death, but kind of like bite at each other a little bit and get frustrated with each other. Like that would be what was fun about this encounter to me. And I think that most players would either, I mean, sometimes you're going to have players just going to run at it and fight it, but any player coming at it from a more like, we're trying to work our way around it, I think most players would have that thought too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a really fun kind of like, even if it doesn't like have any direct mechanical implementation, even if it's just it has disadvantage on one attack throughout the adventure, throughout the battle, or the players get advantage on an attack because they are attacking from two different sides. I think like even if it's very minor like that, it can really give a lot of flavor, right? Talking about it biting at itself, or it just I think it just adds a lot more flavor to the encounter. And makes it feel a little more real.
And I think that you really summed it up very nicely there, Jeremy, in the idea that regardless, you don't need to have a very strict plan for what you're going to have that be. It would just be if the players interact in a meaningful way with the Cerberus having two heads, I would, as a GM, lean into that and give that impact.
Absolutely. It's described once, right, that the heads kind of are barking, fighting with each other a little bit.
Leave that as a clue that it's something that you can interact with, and then...
Yeah, and then just improv how you're going to do it. And just be willing to, be open about it. They might do something that you don't expect. I mean, chat was just saying, throw two balls in slightly different directions. Right, like that's
exactly the kind of thing that I love.
And, as a dungeon master, you might not be expecting something like that. And you'll be like, really, this is like an underworld demon, like, fiend. Sure. You know what?
Yeah, like, but of course. Yes, but of course this works.
Because it's fun, right? Being able to, being willing to be a little flexible in that regard. Because until you tell the players it's an underworld fiend, right? It's not an underworld fiend.
It's a spooky two-headed dog.
Whatever you say. Yeah, it's a spooky two-headed dog. Maybe it's a dog that the cults have mutated with their evil magics. Maybe if it's an undead dog, right? And it's just two dogs that have been swooped together, right? You can, until they take the time to really look at it and investigate it and understand it, it's whatever you want it to be. So,
absolutely. But regardless, I think it's a great guard.
So we have so basically, I guess the idea we're having is maybe there was like a campsite area that the Griffin had, or maybe, crap. So how did they get kidnapped? Do we even need to worry about that? Like how
I don't think we need to go into that much
captured?
detail here. I think that this adventure is, you find the Griffin, you, through interacting with I think there's a couple of ways that this adventure goes, which is they find the Griffin, they don't learn anything about the Griffin, and then you use this dungeon later.
Yeah. Well, you tie other things in it. Maybe they kidnap more people or something over time.
Yeah, and you can always up the stakes. But this is like a way to introduce the dungeon. So the Griffin then would lead them to whatever your dungeon is, your old ruin,
where they encounter the Cerberus,
your terrible cave. At which point they see that, like, okay, there's a Cerberus that's walking back and forth. There's something guarding. There is something significant about this place.
Yeah, This is
this
more
is what
than
the Griffin
just
wanted us to see.
yeah. This is more than just a dude had an accident and fell off his Griffin, right? There's some stuff going on. And I actually like that we didn't figure that out, because this means you can set this in any setting you want, not having to worry about specifics of who this Griffin rider is, you know, what their allegiances are. You can just stick that into any game any setting that you want. Maybe this is a knight of the kingdom that's just on a normal patrol. Maybe they're responding to, you know, kidnappings, right, in the neighboring towns. I think leaving that very open could be really cool.
To use another term from the monomyth, because we used the call to adventure to describe the Griffin, I feel like the Cerberus is the crossing the threshold in that classic literary trope. It's like, this is the beginning of an adventure here, and I think that's just the nature of the creature communicates that too.
Yeah.
But the next thing that we're talking about is, well, this is going to be the dungeon proper. And we're not going to go, I think, right now into a lot of details about what's in this dungeon, because it's a dungeon and you can put any number of things in it. Like, we assume that there's going to be at some point probably a trap, probably more than one of this cultist. There's going to be like a few waves of them, and they're going to see them just going about their dark deeds. I'm sure there's some chanting. I'm sure there's some runes. You know, you're creating
your
the
classic kind of
environment.
tropes. And that's actually great, because we've used the Griffin in an unconventional way. We've used a Cerberus in a very conventional way. I think it's okay to also use these sentries in a conventional kind of way. One thing that you could include, I really like, you know, when you have something like a Cerberus, like a pet animal or a hound companion to monsters, be it wargs for goblins or wolves or whatever. You could have there be like a kennel in the secret base, right? Somewhere where the other Cerberuses are kept, and maybe those Cerberuses aren't too happy, right? They're fighting each other, they are hungry, they're, you know, vicious, and that might be something that the players can use throughout the dungeon to make it more interesting, right? They could maybe let the Cerberuses go, release them from their little cage that they're all jammed into, and that would cause chaos that the sentries might have to, you know, address and be distracted by. So I think that's a cool way we could make that, you know, tie those two things together a little bit.
Revived Tundra 2, that sounds like a cool character. I like it. We probably don't have much time to go into more detail now, but it sounds like a neat character.
I agree. I would, one thing I'd warn Revive, I know it's your second D&D character. One thing I'd recommend, maybe talk to your dungeon master a little bit about like how feasible, like, because a noble bard who uses their contacts and tricks people to get money. I think talking to your dungeon master about how you can actually make that work in the game is a really cool thing. Like if you look at the noble background, you have a feature called, what is it called?
I know the one you're talking about.
A position of privilege, I think it's called.
I think that's exactly
which
right.
lets you get contact, like have audiences with local nobility. Maybe you could talk to your dungeon master about reflavoring that to be like you tricking your way up there or something. That might be a cool direction to go. But think about how you can turn those features and really flavor them in that direction. But yeah, so we've got a Cerberus crossing the threshold. We've got our return sentries. They're just around.
Yeah, well, in terms of creating an interesting point with the return sentry, again, I don't know what the stat block is, but one thing that I think would do a good job to solidify these guards as being unique and not just just this is a cultist. I would really love to like get into the returned, and I love the idea of adding a when they go down they stand back up thing. Even though they look humanoid, like some way to make them return. And just, that's like a tone setter. That's like, this dungeon kind of is playing around with some otherworldly stuff. Even if it's not like, necessarily, we're summoning a demon, not an undead.
Yeah.
And I think that as a GM, you can be like, oh, well, it's demonic power that raises them. They return with horns. Like I don't like. There's a million things that you can do to.
Black demon ichor pours from their eye sockets and open mouths as it stands up, wounds gaping. right?
What
Like,
Jeremy just did there
ta-da.
was great because he told the players Black Demon Ichor. He used the word demon, introducing the idea of demons in this dungeon, even though like there's no reason
They
that
were
the players would
suspicious
necessarily
with the
think.
Cerberus, but now
Yeah,
they know.
now they know, and it's okay to just give that away without them figuring it out or guessing it or making a check. You can just be like Black Demon Ichor, and now your players get to think demons, which is just good. It's good DMing right there.
Yeah, I would really let these sentries be easily bypassed, tricked throughout this, just because the real big fight obviously is going to be this abhorrent overlord in the end.
Yeah.
If players want to try and sneak around them or distract them with the hounds or what have you, I think I would definitely go allow that. I definitely buy into that.
Jeremy, I wish we'd talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
But the Aberrant Overlord has got lots of crows.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
We should have included the crows in a meaningful way beforehand, which it's not too late to do.
Maybe we tie them at the very beginning of the adventure, right? There are lots of crows in the forest, and that's where they run into the griffin. Is the griffin fighting crows?
Oh, that's very good.
The crows are trying to finish off the griffin.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. That's just like a first harbinger after 232 crows as warning signs. Obviously on the same page there. Yeah, that's great. And the thing that's cool about that too is it doesn't run the risk of the contact with the griffin being interpreted as anything other than we're helping a creature, rather than it's like angry in an encounter. It now puts the impetus on the players to be like, oh, we helped this thing, let's see what it does now. And then the griffin kind of chills out after the crows are gone, and they can start to kind of figure out what's going on. That's very good.
Yep, I like that a lot. Good tie-in. Swarm of crows. Yeah, just because we have 4 figures doesn't mean we only have to use those. I think including the swarm of crows is a perfectly fine choice.
And the Aberrant Overlord himself.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So, Final Chamber, Griffin Rider, bearing, like, when you're describing that Griffin Rider, if we're going to do, like, the sacrifice to summon the demon, you can, I think, very clearly, you see the same sigil that you saw on the crest of the Griffin on this, individual's chest or whatever. You don't have to, like, imply it. You can say it. Hit me.
I agree. I'm with you on that, but I want to go back to sentries for a second. What if we turn this dungeon into something a little more engaging, right? This dungeon, it just, as the players start to go through it, as a dungeon master, you can actively tell them, right? They have their first encounter with some of the returned sentries. It was like loud, right? These like a thunder wave and all sorts of stuff. You can say, all right, you have 1 failure in terms of, discreetly passing through the dungeon, and turn it into like a skill challenge. And I think when you're doing stuff like that, it's perfectly fine to like convey that directly to the players, right? Like, all right, so I'm treating this dungeon as like a skill challenge because there are consequences if you make too much of a ruckus going through here. It's okay to do that. Like, you can just, even though they don't know there are consequences, like as characters, you can tell them as players there are, and that. I think that's fine. I think that's a level of metagaming that's like, this is what makes this an interesting puzzle for you guys, or for the group. And I think that's cool.
That's a good mechanic, I think, for sure.
And that could tie into the last thing of the abhorrent overlord, whether you're able to save the Griffin Rider or not.
Yeah. Now, this is a DM trick, and I almost like, this is one of those things that I'm giving you this advice because I love you guys, and I hate saying it out loud because it means it lives at less credibility when I do this. But here's the great thing that you can do with this Abhorrent Overlord. Because you want the end of your dungeon to have a big climactic battle.
Mm-hmm.
And if they succeeded, you can just have a binary state where if they succeeded, then, if they failed, then the Aberrant Overlord is summoned and it appears. But you can still use this very cool aberrant overlord as, oh, they failed, and the head cultist is the aberrant overlord that was summoning and doing an even more powerful thing that you stopped, and still get to have that very cool fight at the end.
I mean, along that same route, right? You can, so let's say we have the aberrant overlord, and we know we want the players to fight the aberrant overlord, right?
Yep.
The players save the Griffin Rider at the end, and the aberrant overlord appears through the port, pulls itself barely through the portal, grievously weakened by its journey, right? It has terrible injuries from its planar travel because of the ritual disrupted. And it's just, you use the same mechanics you were going to use either way. It's just you've described him, the aberrant overlord, as being grievously injured. And then the players go, oh my god, if we hadn't disrupted that ritual, that fight would have been so hard.
That's exactly,
even though
it's the same
use the same
thing.
mechanics. And if the character is sacrificed, the abhorrent overlord triumphantly strides through the portal, ravens flocking from its footfalls, and it seems all intimidating and terrifying. And it's the same stat block either way. It's just how you frame it, and
just
the framing
it's
is so much of what matters in making it fun.
Doctors will hate me for telling you this one cool trick.
This one secret.
But that's the strat.
And I think this works really well. I mean, you can tie this Griffin and Griffin Rider into anything. They can be part of an adventuring guild that you want to tie the campaign into. They could be part of a group of NPCs that your characters are already familiar with and friendly with. That would make it a really easy tie-in at the beginning with the cape bearing the sigils that your characters already know. I think this is such an easy drop into pretty much any campaign where the characters are walking through a forest or a mountainside or literally any wilderness area where there could be a secret base. I mean, even like a back alley could work if you're in like Eberron and Sharn, right? There could just be a bunch of ravens ripping into this griffin in a back alley that the players notice as they're walking by in the shadier part of town, because those spires are, gargantuan anyway. Like, there's a million ways you could tie this in.
Sure.
I love this little mini dungeon we've just kind of brewed up.
For sure. And again, part of the reason was of doing this was to show our design insights. I think the big takeaway from this is that talking about just how me and Jeremy, I think, both do adventure design and designing dungeons and encounters and things, is that the things that I think are the most memorable are the points of story where the players have an opportunity to figure something out, to interact in a unique way, and to create the story. What's not fun is the battle with the Cerberus. What's fun is the moment where the players throw balls in two different directions and the Cerberus gets confused. And it's satisfying to win, but what's really satisfying is the feeling of figuring something out and interacting with the world in that way.
Absolutely. And maybe it'll be really satisfying for the players after too, to have rescued, right? To when they get to that little mini game of sneaking through the dungeon and they don't make enough noise and they're able to rescue the Griffin, that triumph of not beating the abhorrent overlord in the end, but having saved the Griffin Rider, of being sneaky enough, being discreet enough, that's satisfying too. I think I don't know. I really actually dig this little dungeon that we've kind of brewed up here.
And as a final note on this one, because we got another one to do too.
We do. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, that one's gonna be harder. This one was a little bit more a little bit more reasonable than the crazy elemental dungeon that we're putting together, I think, next. If you want to have this as a story, these are two things here. There's something. This is either just a random encounter where you find this griffin and it leads to a story, but I can see just as easily this being the guard captain being, one of my griffin patrol didn't come back. Go find him. And then you find he was investigating this. Go see where he is. And then they come back and they find the griffin. You can definitely lead into it and make it feel cohesive, even though we kind of, I think, set this up almost like a random encounter. I
agree. And actually, it's interesting that Angstaza is saying the heartfelt Griffin/Rider reunion. Yeah, I've got a lot of players. I've got players in my home group that's what they live for. Is that that heartfelt, that nice we did a good. But yeah, anyway, it's very cool. I really like the dungeon we made. Want to jump on to our next one, Pete?
I'd love to.
This one's going to be tougher. So we've got some really wild things here. We have the Alcead, which I figured it out. I looked at this a little bit more closely. These are wheat. This is wheat.
Yeah, it's
They're all around, and it's leaves.
It's a plains dryad.
Yeah. So this is like nature and plains and kind of peace in that regard.
In MTG, it's the white dryad. It's the of the 5 magic colors, it's the dryad that they put, or the nymph that they put in the color white.
We have the fire Oread, which is all about kind of
the red.
They're fire.
The red card.
We have what is it? The emissary of Thassa, which is
the emissary of
crab.
Thassa. Big cosmic crab is my favorite thing.
Yeah, and we've got the Leonin Swiftclaw, the blind person. So I was thinking about this a lot, and I'm trying to think of what environment we want to use this in, right? Like, if we wanted to look at this in the context of Theros, right? I see right now we have a Leonin who rejects the gods, and 3 creatures tied very closely, kind of to the gods, right?
You're going in a direction that I was thinking with this Leonin too, I think, which is this feels like a person, and maybe this isn't the direction that you're thinking, but this feels like a character that is also in this place doing an unrelated independent thing, which I was actually originally thinking
so as well.
I was thinking originally like an unrelated tomb robber, or dungeon crawler or whatever. But
you know what I love about this? We got, and there's something like you can draw inspiration from the craziest places. We got the Leonin Swiftclaw, not the Leonin Iconoclast, which is like the bigger, more powerful like version. Yeah. And I think maybe the Swiftclaw is on some kind of a journey, right? They're doing some kind of a almost like a pilgrimage kind of deal to reject these godly entities, to maybe become an iconoclast, right? To gain those to do those rites and gain that power.
That's cool.
Like that makes a lot of sense with me. So I think they're in our elemental dungeon, but they're very much their own thing.
And I think that, like, if you don't want to run this in Theros, that story can just be true for anything. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's still a cool story. This person is going through some kind of like ancient rite, and to become something more is a great story, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's think a little bit about like how we want to tie these together. As Angstaza mentioned in the chat, right? We have Earth through the Alcead, or I guess really, yeah, through the Alcead. We got fire through the Oread. We've got water through the crab.
Earth.
Or fire and water. I mean,
I really wanted to say earth, wind, and fire, but I couldn't do it.
But Pete, if we said we had 5 figures, but one of them was just invisible, no.
I was actually thinking about that, like, because that was really the obvious solution to me, was to add 2 more. Was to add like 2 more creatures to this and kind of create, like, I could see a very clear 4 elements like paralleled dungeon. But I almost think it's more interesting to have like 2. And here's what I'm going to throw out. The Swiftclaw has already killed 2.
Yes. Already killed 2 of them. I think we were going to say that the Oread could count. I'm sorry, the Alcead, the kind of grain plains one, could be Earth.
I was thinking that the Cosmic Crab was going to be something else.
Oh, the Cosmic Crab! I thought it was water. Okay.
Well, because I feel like a 4 parallel of.
That's awesome, though. Right, and that's the emissary of Thassa has been sent here to seek revenge for the death.
Yeah, this is like, that seems to me like a last line of defense sort of thing, or a in terms of pulling this whole, like a the water. What's the? I can't remember the name of the water nymph. I don't, for the life of me right now.
The
it's
Naiad.
The Naiad. It's like one of the most iconic ones.
Yeah, probably the most iconic one.
Except for Dryad. It is the most.
It's fair.
It's number 2. I pulled Oread too, which is wild.
Go figure.
I picture this as like the Dryad, or I'm sorry, the Naiad goes down, and then it somehow triggers the Cosmic Crab to exist, and that seems like almost the scene that they find this space on.
Oh, that's like where they reach the. Okay, so let's go with that, right? What is this place?
Okay,
Maybe this
that's
is
a
like
great question.
A temple to the gods or something.
This feels very temple-y to me, which I guess we just kind of did. That one felt more like ruined dungeon, though.
Cult dungeon.
Like, yeah, and this feels more like sacred temple.
Yeah, this is a cave that we found somewhere, and the cultists just went in there. This one's like a proper temple to the gods, right?
In terms of like harbinging this adventure, I could very much see like if this is in either a mountainous or a very like plainsy domain, I could see like a projection of the Alcyon or the Oread being like, we're getting dunked on by this Swiftclaw, come help us. Like,
so if we could go with that. But Pete, hear me out.
I'm ready to hear you out.
We've got like a town. We've got just a town. And the town is like, it's on the coast, but there are mountains on the coast. So it's like got that Oread and water kind of sense. And I don't know. So we've got a town that would pray to all these.
Jeremy, I feel like we're getting a little bit too complicated with it. Like,
let me say it like this. Let me. I was getting too caught up in the weeds. It's freaking storming. It is pouring rain. It is just unseasonably brutal in terms of the wind and the rain. And the people of the town have seen this as a sign from the gods that something is wrong. And that's kind of the hook as to why the adventurers go to this temple. Because of the incredibly unseasonal, basically hurricanes that are battering this place.
If you want to get more detailed into that, the priests have not returned, like things like that. Like there's a lot of little details that you can put into that whole story, but the bottom line is that unseasonal hurricane is, there's something off, and the gods are probably angry right now.
The people have turned to their religious leaders for guidance, and that's all that they can say, right? Is something must be wrong at the temple.
Yeah.
Really easy tie-in. Maybe if it's the campaign that that you're running and it's not in Theros, right? Easy tie-in could be, hey, the players need to maybe they are going to this place to get a ship, right, so they can travel overseas, and the port can't open because hurricane winds outside, right? Maybe they're traveling there to meet with someone, and they can't because of what's going on or what have you, right? There are more important things going on at the town, but I think you could tie in pretty easily, right, this to a lot of games. Hell, I mean, it could just start happening wherever you are, right? Wherever the players currently are, suddenly brutal, unseasonal, hurricane-esque stuff begins to happen.
Yeah, most assuredly, that would be a good way to go about it. But in terms of creating this, I keep having more grandiose ideas than I think that we're going for with these miniature adventures, which is I was picturing almost like a... I think that this adventure is not really about solving the problems of this space, but I think it's about just protecting... this is almost a single encounter, and it is protect the remaining creatures from this powerful hunter in the terms of this Leonin Swiftclaw.
Yeah, I like that. So the overarching goal is to protect the existing Alcyon and Oread. I dig that.
And I really like the idea of the encounter being in some way the emissary of Thassa, this cosmic crab. Do we want this to be a challenge for the players? Like, I could almost see this crab as almost like a more interlopers in this dungeon just smite all the unknown elements, and it comes after the players, not understanding that it wasn't them that destroyed the naiad or whatever creature that was important to the space.
I like the idea. So going back to our very beginning, I like the idea that the people in the town know that the naiad or the nymphs live at the temple, right? They know the nymphs are there, and that something must be wrong. Maybe not even something must be wrong at the temple. Find out why. Find out why the nymphs are, why the gods are wrathful. And the people in the town don't realize they're dead, right? And that will be the overarching kind of goal. I kind of saw this one almost as like a big puzzle dungeon.
That's what I was thinking too, but that's very complicated for us to figure out the details of a puzzle right now, is what I'm thinking. Unless you have a cool idea right off the bat.
I mean, I was just thinking,
It's the inclusion of the Leonin Swiftclaw that I think is throwing us up, because we have two conflicting ideas. In our hearts, we kind of want to do a thing for each of the four elements to finish the ritual as one adventure thing, but then we have included this Leonin Swiftclaw, who's very literally in our own creation of this, getting in the way and destroying the cool puzzle dungeon that we want to make. Which, I don't know, I feel like this is almost a single encounter of stop the Swiftclaw, and then you have rebuild and revitalize life that the Swiftclaw took away to the rest of the dungeon.
So maybe that's what it is. It is a puzzle dungeon. Maybe the Alciad and the Oriad, right, have kind of locked themselves away, which is why they're still there. And so, players arrive at temple. It's clearly broken into. And, as they're going to the temple, they run into probably the giant crab first, right?
Yep.
So the cosmic crab is kind of the easy enemy. Or not easy enemy, but what do you call it? A major obstruction. It's in the way. You got to battle it. To get further into the temple. Yep. It is probably clearly a summoned thing, right? It was sent here for some reason, and maybe that there's some weirdness to that, right? Why is it just destroying? It's obviously an emissary of, right, a servant of water, right, or of the water goddess of the nymphs. I think that's a really cool thing to tie in as almost a little puzzle, as a kind of not puzzle so much as
it is an opportunity for the players to find the story of this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Why is something going wrong? This thing shouldn't be doing that.
And that would be just in the form of there is some kind of seal. And here is what I think. Here is, I think, the juice of this adventure, Jeremy. I think I got it. I think I found it.
Okay.
This is an opportunity. The players fight the crab, and then they move forward. They see two desecrated. If we're doing the four elements, they see the desecrated water region, which they went through. They see an already desecrated air region, and then they see the Swiftclaw trying to break into the other sealed regions.
Even beyond that, what if it leaves the dungeon? What if the Swiftclaw has already left, and the players have to go track it back down? Because it's taken the hearts of the of air and earth.
But here's what I wanted.
Sure.
was the and this is the juice that I was actually getting at, was the it is a player point where they can either choose to the Swiftclaw either ally with the Swiftclaw and destroy this place because they are convinced by the Swiftclaw's argument that this place is evil and it represents these horrible things, or hear
moral struggle. Look what the gods would just so fickly do to that town.
Yeah. And then it's decided, do we turn on the Swiftclaw or do we aid the Swiftclaw in defeating these creatures? Because the Swiftclaw, I think, is like... I think that, like, as a dungeon master, I would tell players if they're trying to persuade the Swiftclaw not to act, I would make it very explicit, like, it's clear to you that this individual, this isn't a very premeditated action. It's basically impossible for you to convince them not to move in this direction. You could only, like, per se, if you want to distract them or to, maybe intimidate them and make them think twice about doing it now because of your presence, that might be something you could do. But it would very much be you're not going to convince this Swiftclaw that the gods and you are chill.
Yeah, exactly. I like this, the moral struggle. Look at what the gods so thickly do to the town with their winds and rain. Their wrath will soon pass as they forget even their most devoted servants. Right? Like, a very good, dramatic, utterance of this Leonin saying, no, I'm not gonna fucking work with these gods. We're gonna kill them. I think that works pretty well. Yes. I like that as a tie-in.
And I think that that's our adventure. And then the adventure that we both really want to make of the things for the 4 elements, I think, is another adventure if you choose to help the temple,
So defeating the Leonin, right? What does that do? Defeating the Leonin maybe sates the anger of the gods. And then aiding the Leonin becomes a deeper puzzle, right? Or becomes a bigger challenge.
Yeah, and then that would be a point from which we no longer have minis, because I imagine there's one of those cosmic crabs for all of them.
Yeah. So aiding the Leonin is just more battle.
The mountain's got the space ape.
Yeah,
almost works.
So I like the idea for if you defeat the Leonin, optional continuing mission to restore the naiads. Or the naiads, the nymphs, right? Maybe go out on quests to find, right, a perfect apple or something dumb for the harvest one, right? It's but this apple has some bruises, and all sorts of dumb things. And it turns out there's a giant who's it turns out you end up going to the Sunless Citadel adventure where you need to get the perfect apple from the tree. Perfect tie-in, folks.
And I think with that, I think that's probably as far as we want to go on this one. But it's not bad. I think it's an interesting story for how wild those 4 components are.
Yeah, they're very weird for 4 figures. I like it. I like it a lot.
Agreed.
I think it's a pretty fun little... I think it's very quick, too. Unlike, this other one was also pretty brief, but...
The other one's that one, both of these are... Honestly, the second one is kind of like a session to me, but this one is almost like a half session. This is a hay session.
Exactly. This is there was a lot of RP, and the players are stuck in the... Actually, this is super important. Listen to this, folks. This is your players are in a town, and they're RPing the whole time, and there's one player in the group who really, really loves combat, and their character really is a barbarian. They haven't been involved in a lot of the RP, and they're getting a little tired, and you're like, all right, I need to make something happen. I can't just have a monster appear because they're in a city. This happens. Right? This is a really good way to break the issues that a lot of city play can work with. Can run into.
Bring me a cherry that has no stone is a very cool request.
Very good line.
That's awesome.
Very, very good line. But yeah, I dig it. I love it.
Likewise.
I think it's a very fun little mini adventure. And of course, all of this just from
just from these little guys.
Random box of the minis.
I really like this Aberrant Overlord. It's such a cool looking figurine.
He's one of the ones I've really wanted, Pete. You son of...
Sorry, Jerry.
Pete, I knew you would get him. There's no question in my mind.
They call me Lucker Pete.
When I knew that you would be opening minis, I was like, well, Dorat.
But that is probably our show too. We don't think we're gonna have time to go over the Reddit subclasses. There's one I'm definitely...
They're always just a filler thing at the end anyway.
Yeah, next week we'll definitely do one of them or asterisk because there's one I really like in there. But tonight it's 11:30, so we'll.
That's the end of the show.
Call it there. Yeah, I almost just said I'm Pete, but thank you all for watching.
yeah, if you liked what we were doing here tonight, so if you like these minis, first of all, head over to, well, even if you don't like them, head over to twitch.tv/MattyMorgs. Maddie's an awesome content creator, also makes a lot of stuff, does a lot of stuff related to Dungeons and Dragons. It's always a blast over there. He sells miniatures, which you can buy. He'll ship them anywhere to the continental United States, and even internationally, but you got to talk to him before that because there's some weird shipping fee stuff involved because international shipping. But yeah, if you're interested in getting some of these things, you can do that.
Yeah.
And of course, also just check him out. He's a great guy. Very fun stream.
I could not agree more. And
I got a couple of these other figures, man. There's some really good ones on here, like the Dryad, Ceci boy.
I got that Hithonia the Cruel, which was really neat.
I'll say the pictures are good, but the pictures do not do them justice. These figures are so good out of the Theros set. They're just so good. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Pete, you're trying to close out the show.
I was. That's it. That's basically, we closed out the show already, I think. We've said everything. We love you. Tune in on Friday to Pete and Jeremy's D&D Time, which is a show where we play games with our community. That's basically all there is to it. It's Friday. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. We run 3 one-shot adventures with folks who hang around the channel and view and sign up for it. You can find more out about it at dndtime.stream. A reminder, actually, there'll be a post about it tomorrow, but just as a reminder, there's going to be some minor changes about the way that we arrange things for Fantasy Labs in the workshop. Basically, we're just changing the completed works to from now on, if you want to submit content for us to talk about on Fantasy Labs, just do so in the completed works, which will be renamed to for review, essentially on Fantasy Labs. In parentheses, that won't be written there on Fantasy Labs. I think that's all I got for no. Oh, there's going to be homework. Put it out, and I'll put that homework out tomorrow.
All right. I guess without further ado, I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Pete. And this is
Fantasy Labs. Good night, everyone.